So today I entitled it Nothing's Lacking. It's a popular kind of concept in meditation world, but especially yoga. This idea that we already have the thing we're looking for. It can sound sort of, yeah, I get it. But of course, we don't experience that, because if we did, we wouldn't be here. We'd be experiencing it and we'd have no need to do anything. So we're going to kind of examine that a little bit. In yoga, there's this idea that there's this sort of inner consciousness that pervades things and that we all have access to. And the reason we might practice is to remind ourselves of that. So that's the overarching theme. We usually come to meditation because we feel that, like we feel something's missing or lacking, or just not quite right with ourselves. It might even be like a psychological states or emotional states we don't like. And we're looking to find relief from that. And it feels as if we just look hard enough, we'll find that missing piece. And so a lot of people will bounce around to different practices and things, hoping that when they find the one, right, they'll find the missing piece and everything will kind of click together. And in a way, that's true, because as you deepen your practice, you start noticing things differently. And what's great is that sort of feeling of lack motivates us to practice. It motivates us to look within ourselves and see what's actually there. And the great seers who have been kind of handed to us in the forms of texts also think this is a great thing. So in the Yoga Vasishta, for instance, the main character is totally despondent because he basically has no idea what's going on and has no idea why he's living. He's pretty bummed out. And all the sages are like, well, that's great. Because they know that this is the first step towards his enlightenment, that he realizes that he has to maybe do something or look somewhere else. So that book is about that. And there's 12 or 1400 pages after that moment where they explain everything to him and he becomes enlightened. So that's one example of that. The Yoga Sutras tells us in the first few sutras that once we stop identifying exclusively with our thoughts, we find yoga, which can be translated as union, or you could also translate that as deep inner contentment. And that's right in the beginning. And that contentment comes from the experience or the realization that nothing is lacking. So that's right in the beginning of that book. And the Yoga Spandakarika reminds us in a different way. And what that says is that it's in the first 9 sutras, it basically says all of the things we experience are manifestations of this one thing we're looking for. So no matter what the experience is, you're actually finding it. And all of our desires, which include our desire for things to be different, are expressions of that thing we're looking for. We're free, and there's nothing really to do because awareness is all that there is. So you're already doing it. So it's just another way of of saying the same thing from a different viewpoint. And finally, in terms of text, the Tao says, you don't have to do anything at all. Once we free for ourselves from striving, and right in the beginning of the book in verse 3, it says, everything will fall in place. That's the translation. Just do nothing and everything falls in place. So there's 4 different versions of trying to tell us that there's no problem. But of course, again, those are ideas, and most of us feel like there's a problem, right? Like we don't experience this all the time. So the whole reason we meditate and we're here today is to try to match those ideas with our reality. And if we choose, we can sort of have faith that those ideas are true. And, you know, I picked those 4 things. I literally could have given you 50. Like, these books are very popular. People keep writing them who have this experience, and they keep trying to say the same thing in a different way. But we do have to be still enough, basically, to experience it. So we're here now. And when we find it, and that might be for long periods of time, or that might be for just a fleeting moment while we're sitting, we see that the thing we're looking for, we already have. And that's because it's a little logic loop, but clearly we already have it because we're just sitting still and all of a sudden we feel way better. So, you know, it was already there. We just paid attention for a second. We're going to sit with kind of this in mind, and we're going to go in, hopefully, with the attitude, I guess is the right word, that nothing's lacking, and that we're here to practice to kind of match that with our thoughts, see if our thoughts will like come in line with that, and our experience will come in line with that. And that even though we're meditating, we're actually also not really doing anything. So what that really translates out to in terms of what we're actually doing right now is we're going to meditate, we're going to follow the instructions, we're going to do the techniques, but we're going to remember that we don't have to try super hard. We just have to be here and do it. And the Tao really emphasizes this part. It's like, stop trying so hard. Stop trying so hard. But of course, this is better than just eating donuts and yelling at the TV. So we're going to do this instead of that. It's a lot easier to meditate together. I know a lot of you have meditated a bunch and alone and apart. And I'm sure those of you who have experience know this, that in community, this is way easier. Even though it's a solo activity, just knowing that other people are there with you is extremely helpful, and it's a great vehicle for our own evolution. So lovely. And yeah, so we're going to do that now. So today we're going to do 3 meditations. They're all meditations from the course. I might give you some variations on them, but they're all meditations from the course. The first one is like there to entrain us and get our mind into the eternal and connected to the expanded consciousness that comes when you find your energetic center. So that first one is a version of spine breath, because we want to find our central channel and allow our mind to open that way. So that's how we're setting ourselves up. This is not our only shot at realizing nothing is lacking and finding contentment. But as we repeat this process over and over again, the way it manifests for us is we find ourselves more content in general. So you're going to have your experience today practicing, and that could look a lot of different ways. But know that over time, and this time included, the practices themselves will leave us feeling a little more centered in the fact that things are as they should be for each of us. I'm going to say one more thing because I can't help myself. That's true even if we don't like the current conditions that we're in. Yoga Spandakarika reminds us that that is just a prelude to the next thing, whatever that next thing may be. And so we can be content and annoyed simultaneously. So I'll leave you with that thought. Both of those they are not in opposition whatsoever.